Good afternoon, San Francisco. You are looking great. This is our Pride Weekend kickoff. This crowd for our Trans Rally and March gets larger and more beautiful every year. So thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. And it's appropriate that I would share with you my pride for the trans community and the progress that we have made due to the steadfast, determined, compassionate efforts that this community has endeavored to make sure that we move things along legislatively. You know, we can change laws. Hearts and minds sometimes come a bit later. But it was about 14 years ago, as a member of the Board of Supervisors, that we were able to introduce a first of its kind in the nation local law that would provide equal access to the trans community for trans employees of the city and county of San Francisco for our health plan. It had never been done before. Every headline said city to pay for sex change operations. Well, that wasn't quite what we were doing, though it was part of what we were doing. I'll give you an example. If you were a transgender employee of the city and county of San Francisco in year 2000 and you needed hormonal treatment or psychiatric treatment, a mastectomy, a hysterectomy, the city wouldn't pay for any of it. If you were a non-transgender employee, they'd pay for all of it. Well, that didn't make sense. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And it was simply because we hadn't done the actuarial studies to see what additional minor costs it would be to the county to allow for equal access to its health plan for all of its employees, including its transgender employees. We put that into law here in San Francisco, and a lot changed as a result of that. And it's because of leaders like Teresa Sparks and Cecilia Chung and many, many others, Robert Holland, who moved that forward back in year 2000. When we got to the State Assembly in 2003, we were able to include gender identity into our Fair Employment and Housing Act. It was in 1999 that we added sexual orientation. We added gender identity in 2003. So step by step, we make progress. Assemblyman Amiano authored a very important bill a couple years ago, which will allow students in our public education system in California to be able to access the facilities that are appropriate for their gender identity. And that's another major step forward. So we got a lot yet to do. Meanwhile, this weekend is about celebration. And I hope let's hear it for Pride in San Francisco, because I get to introduce. Oh, all right, before we do that.
Thank you.
And let me just make mention that whereas nationwide, we recognize this is the 45th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in Greenwich Village, recognized as the beginning of the modern LGBT civil rights movement. But in fact, it started in San Francisco in 1966 at Compton Cafeteria, when our trans community stepped forward. And Fierce Felicia was there to tell the police they were not going to relinquish their ground. And so we want to bow down to our local heroes who got the whole thing going in 1966. So, with that said, I have a proclamation from the California State Senate thanking the leaders of the transgender community here in San Francisco for their leadership and bringing us another great time, another great weekend, because everyone, every human life is deserving of respect, dignity, and validation, and that's why we're celebrating tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
66, I won't forget.
And now we introduce Mayor. Got it.
And now I hope you'll join me in recognizing a great leader of San Francisco. Will go down in history as such. Mayor Ed Lee was the very first mayor of San Francisco to join us at a trans rally on Pride Friday. He did it his first year in office. He did it his second year in office. He did it, it hasn't been a year he's been in office when he hasn't joined us. I also want to recognize that he sponsored our bill in Sacramento this past year that would have reined in speculators who are evicting innocent San Franciscans from their home, abusing the Ellis Act, which was intended for landlords, abused by speculators. No cause evictions. You pay your rent, you're a good tenant, you're a good neighbor, and you're out on the street. Mayor Ed Lee sponsored our bill. We got it through the Senate. It got stalled in the Assembly, but we'll be back again because that needs to be changed. Mayor Lee worked with us to get $20 million of funding stabilization for San Francisco's community college, and that's in this year's budget, so that we can sustain not only our accreditation for City College, but its funding levels. So there won't be more teacher layoffs, and there won't be fewer classes, and the college will be restored to its rightful greatness. So please, a big, a warm, loving San Francisco welcome for our mayor, Ed Lee.
Thank you, Senator Leno. It's been a pleasure working with you. How's everybody? Transgender March 2014. Well, it's my honor and my pleasure to join you yet again on this wonderful march, and to also let you know that in City Hall, we have never forgotten the T in LGBT. And whether it was from the Compton cafeteria riots that started, or all the way to the equity marriages that Gavin Newsom started at City Hall, we've all been working to make sure our diversity is the strength of San Francisco. That's what makes San Francisco great. And we will not only not forget you, we will always remember the transgendered community when we're doing our housing plan, our employment plan, our non-discrimination plan, our business plans. You are all part of the strength of San Francisco, and don't let anybody ever tell you it isn't. So we are continuing to make our city strong economically, but we also want to make sure all the people participate. And that's why in this last budget, we worked hard with the supervisors to make sure we added more money to decrease the barriers of employment for transgender community people. You need jobs like everybody else. And you got the talent to help us create the best jobs in the world. So let's celebrate this weekend. Let's keep marching on forward. Let's take care of each other. Let's keep healthy. Happy Pride Weekend. Happy TransMarch 2014. Thank you.
He meant TransMarch.
You are Trans-America.
Thank you, Mayor Lee.
Thank you all so much, and thank you to all of my fellow steering committee members.
All supervisors.
And so now,
Wait, Danielle, all supervisors on stage. They're here. They're all here.
I would really love to bring up to the stage, we actually have some supervisors from the city of San Francisco. Who are they?
Wow, Supervisor David Campos, I see.
Oh my goodness.
I see Supervisor David Chu.
Oh.
I see Supervisor Scott Wiener. And I see Supervisor Jane Kim, my District 6 supervisor.
Oh, come on up. Let's say hello to TransMarch.
Really brief remarks.
All right. Did you want to say something, Señor Campos?
I just want to say I'm so proud to be here with the trans community. You know, there was a time when even in the LGBT community, people thought that as long as we got rights, if the trans community was excluded, it was okay. Never again, and we're going to make sure, never again, and we're going to let the trans community be left out of anything. You are as part of this community as anyone, and we're not going to leave anyone behind. And let's also make sure that we fight to make sure that trans people can afford to live in San Francisco. because so many of us are being pushed out. Let's let some of this prosperity flow down to the regular people who actually need the help and are being pushed out. Thank you so much. Happy Pride.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm David Chu, President of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. The sun is shining on San Francisco today. As we look out onto the crowd, I wish you could see what we can see from this stage. You represent the beauty, the diversity of what the city of St. Francis is about. Thank you for being part of an incredible community. We look forward to a wonderful Pride weekend, and we look forward to standing with you, with marching with you, and making sure that our entire trans community receives all that San Francisco has to offer, and that you are part of the leadership of our city. Thank you for being here.
Good evening and happy Pride Weekend, everyone. I'm Scott Wiener. Welcome back to Dolores Park TransMarch. We're being renovated right now, but it's going to be done soon, and it's going to be even better than before. So many times the trans community has led the LGBT community as we have moved forward. Going back to Compton's cafeteria, going back to Stonewall, we need to never forget that and always stand together as a community. Make sure everyone has access to health care, make sure everyone has access to employment, and make sure that everyone can feel safe walking down our streets. Have a great Pride, everyone. Thank you.
Who's that beautiful woman? Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Jane Kim. I get to represent a really cool part of San Francisco, South of Market and the Tenderloin, and in an hour, we are gonna make San Francisco history by renaming the first street in San Francisco after a transgender individual here in San Francisco, Vicky Marlene. So I know you all are gonna enjoy the sun here, but then you're gonna march with us from Dolores Park to the Tenderloin. We're gonna meet up with the crew that made Vicky Marlene happen, and I just want to acknowledge Felicia, who is up on stage, who chaired the committee, Jamie, Sue Englander, Jasmine, and so many other people that worked hard to keep Vicky's memory alive on the 100 block of Turk Street, where she danced and held shows, and we are going to be naming that street after her tonight. So we look forward to seeing you in the Tenderloin.
Thank you so much, you all. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate you and the services you provide for our community. Thank you.